So, Assalamu alaikum, and first of all, a big warm hello to the children in this room. I'm so happy. And not only the children in this room, but children of Pakistan as well as all the global children. This is their event, and I must tell you all that you're at the center of it all. This is all about you today. And it's not only today. We might have woken up to it a bit late, but we have woken up. We've started reimagining. And you're at the center stage of the justice system, inshallah. So some of the prominent judges sitting here, you'll see that the courts are going to now start functioning differently. We want to mainstream this child justice as one of our key, agendas for the future. So, I mean, just keep that in mind, that you're our heroes and you're the one that we're looking at. So let me just start off by first really appreciating what was said, what Abdullah said, what Nadia said, what Rabia said. Brilliant conversation, brilliant ideas, and I would really want FGA to sort of share these speeches with me so I can sort of take them to the Chief Justice and share it with my other judges also. Some very important points that were made. I would also urge both of them, the NCHR and NCRC, sorry if I mixed them up, but I've already had this conversation with Madam Rabia earlier, that you see, come to the court. You see, come to the court also. I don't personally sit on a constitutional bench, but my brother does, and he could really take up these matters, you see, under 184.3. Or you can go to the High Court. I mean, you need to also have this engagement with us. Don't expect us to just do this on our own. You have so much data, you have so much information, you have such reports with you. Why didn't you approach the court? For a number of things that you've just said today, they're very important. And we need to sensitize things by, so you're approaching the courts. Public interest litigation makes a lot of difference. And I think I would urge both the organizations, and I think it's within your mandate to reach out and do this. I also want to thank Abdullah, who is a wonderful human being, and more than a regional head. To me, he's just a very good friend. That means a lot more. And to UNICEF, and for sort of partnering with FGA, and for basically enlightening us on this concept. Had we not met, had we not interacted with UNICEF, perhaps I would not have learned a lot that I have learned over the period of time that I've sort of worked with them. So this is amazing. And today my exercise is that I want to tell my judges who are here from the district judiciary that how important child justice is here. Child justice is to us, and how we can really improve on this concept. How can we actually mainstream this concept in our jurisprudence and actually help children in our country? So children who are sitting here, now I'm addressing my judges how to do things for you. You see, so you are at the heart of it again. So that deserves a big clap for you, and thank you for being here also. So thank you to UNICEF, thank you to Valerie Khan also, who's actually the silent worker behind all this, and she's not only on the stage, but she's the one who's done a lot of work. Big clap for her too, actually. So all these people, and of course the dynamic team at FGA, how could I not sort of appreciate them, which includes the DG, Fakhr Saab and Shazia, and the others also, who've done a lot of work behind this child justice. So child justice means a lot to us, and I'm sure later on you'll see there are some activities here. We're trying to set up a center at the FGA for children, so that when judges come for training, they sort of go into that center and get more sensitized towards child rights. We're also, thinking of other things that I'll talk about, like child court in the country. We'll talk about that in just a while. So I just want to share a few things, some of the ideas that I had on this subject. But let me just start off by saying that children are not only our future, they are our present also. So that's very important. Sometimes we think it's about future. It's not the future, it's right now. And I think we need to take stock of things right now as we speak. So, and I rely on this wonderful, while preparing this, I got to know a number of child rights activists who've written wonderfully well over the years. So Janusz Korczak, must be Polish, has written wonderfully. He says the children are not the people of tomorrow. They are people today. They have a right to be taken seriously. So that's something. And also want to quote another saying by Desmond Tutu, who said, children are a gift from God. They are not just tomorrow's citizens, they are citizens today. So a lot of people are emphasizing the contemporary understanding of children. You see, we all think that it's the future. No, it's not the future. It's today, and we must think of that way. I want to start off by talking about a wonderful person which I discovered during my research. This is Eglantine Jebb. She's born in England in 1876 and was a pioneering social reformer. And I would urge the children and others to read up about her. And she founded an organization called Save the Children way back in early 18th century, an organization dedicated to improving the lives of children worldwide. After witnessing the devastating impact of World War I on children, that Save the Children organization and the work she did, she came up with the Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1924, which became the foundation for the UNCRC, which was later on the convention that we talk about, the UNCRC, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child. So she was a pioneering lady, you see, and I would urge everybody to read up about her because she's written wonderfully well, and her iconic quote is, "The only international language in the world is a child's cry," which has become, the quote becomes iconic for its simple yet profound acknowledgement of children's universal vulnerability and the need for collective responsibility. Yet, across the globe, millions of children suffer in silence, disregarded, overlooked, and deprived of justice that they deserve. So UNICEF's profound concept of voice of the child, I'm really actually impressed by the phraseology of it. Voice of the child reminds us that justice is incomplete without listening to those it serves. The voice of the child isn't just about hearing children, but about amplifying their voices. And we need to understand that. We don't really, in the courts, frankly, judges sitting here, we don't really listen to children. हमारे अदालत में बच्चा पेश होता है, माँ बाप से ही पूछ लेते हैं, अच्छा क्या करना है जी, क्या होना है, and as if this is a commodity standing on the side. ये मानते हैं ना ये बात, आप लोग एग्री करेंगे, हम उससे इंटरेक्ट नहीं करते बच्चे से. हम वो कोर्ट में बच्चा खड़ा हुआ है, हम माँ बाप से बात करते हैं, फैसला कर देते हैं उसकी ज़िंदगी का, उसका भी हक है कुछ कहने का. सो एक जो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ इस कन्वेंशन से निकल रही है वो ये कि लिसन टू चिल्ड्रन. प्लीज़, उनका भी कोई माइंड है, उनकी भी कोई सोच है, उनकी भी कोई फीलिंग्स हैं, उनको सुने. So पहला मैसेज ये होगा, please listen to the children in the court. That would be the first lesson for me as a judge. Next time a child appears in your court, listen to the child. Talk to the child. Have a conversation with the child. Make him participate or her participate in the proceedings, जो अभी नहीं होता, और हम एग्री करते हैं कि नहीं होता. And I'm sorry to the children कि नहीं होता, लेकिन होगा आज के बाद. ठीक है. So the Voice of the Child program of the UNICEF is actually designed to ensure that children are actively involved in matters that affect their lives, promoting their right to be heard and participate in the decision-making process. This, to my mind, and this to the world perhaps, is child justice that we want to talk about. So children are defined by law as who are under the age of majority in this country or in any country, usually 18 years old. Child justice refers to a specialized system of laws, policies, and practices designed to address the unique needs and rights of children, ensuring their protection, rehabilitation, and reintegration into the society. We need to put the children back into the society. Earlier, Madam Rabia also referred to the fact that tota chori hua to jail mein baitha. That's not it. The children have to go back into the society. We'll talk about diversion and other things. Reintegration is critical for children. I mean, आप इनको आम adults की तरह treat नहीं कर सकते. They have to go back into the society. So when we established the first child court in Lahore, the concept was कि बच्चों को अदालती जो निज़ाम है उसका उनके formative years हैं उनको disturb मत करें, उनको अदालती निज़ाम में से मत गुजारें. So हमने child court separate एक complex के बाहर साइड पे बना दिया कि child आए फारग करें, get done with his case so that he gets back to life. You see, rather than his case is tagged along with all the other cases और 15 साल 20 साल बच्चे को भी लग रहे हैं उस केस में से गुजरने के लिए. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि वो criminal case हो. The child could be a witness in a case, the child could be just a respondent in that case or defendant, or could also be an accused. तो उसको फारग जल्दी करें. That was the concept of child courts that we try to establish, and we plan to do that. And just as Jamal is here, who's very actively participating in a number of reforms, that we need to take child courts in the country, all over the country. उसको बनाना मुश्किल नहीं है, सिर्फ केस मैनेजमेंट की बात है कि बच्चों के केसेस सारे उधर चले जाएं. And I'm sure Islamabad High Court could have a look at that also. So this system emphasizes restorative approach over punitive measures. That's the critical part. Aiming to create opportunities for children to leading fulfilling lives. As Nelson Mandela aptly said, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. So हमारा टेस्ट क्या होगा, जुडिशरी का टेस्ट क्या है कि हम बच्चों को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं. मेरा ख्याल अगर हमारे मार्क्स लगने हैं, इनको तो ए ग्रेड मिल गया है, हमें नहीं मिला अभी, लेकिन हमें ए ग्रेड तब मिलेगा कि हमारा जस्टिस सिस्टम बच्चों के लिए क्या कर रहा है, कितने सेंसिटिव हैं हम अपने जस्टिस सिस्टम में बच्चों की तरफ, फिर शायद ए और स्टार भी मिलेगा हाथ पे, वरना नहीं मिलेगा. सो ये ज़रूरी है. सो लाइक ऑल ऑफ अस हियर, these children have human rights, we need to understand that, which includes the right to speak out and express opinions, as well as right to equality, health, education, a clean environment, a safe place to live, and protection from all kinds of harm. This is the mandate. In fact, the approach is that the children should be more dear and more important to us than ourselves. That should be the approach of a judge, to my mind. A child walks into your court, you need to get very sensitively alert. Oh, let me just sort this out first. You can't make the child sit the whole day and not listen and forget about that. That case must automatically, that file must speak to you immediately. That this is the case I must address immediately. And with compassion and all that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So statistics, briefly, they've been mentioned earlier also. So according to UNICEF, again, there are about 2.4 billion children in the world, nearly a third of the total human population. Global challenges include, we come down to Pakistan, but global challenges are children in conflict zones. Over 450 million children live in conflict-affected areas where justice is often inaccessible. And it's very heartening and depressing, actually, to talk about genocide at Gaza, and the figures that are coming out are disturbing. I move on to child labor and exploitation, another global challenge. The juvenile justice system is another challenge because incarceration rates remain alarmingly high and rehabilitation systems are often punitive rather than restorative. This is a global dilemma. Digital vulnerabilities is a new thing. Online exploitation, cyberbullying, and trafficking are emerging threats to child safety. This is a global threat also. Coming to Pakistan, as of 2023, there are 107 million people under the age of 18 in Pakistan. Out of these, 71 million children are aged 5 to 16. And it's a unique situation that Pakistan has a young generation than any other country. I think 62% are young people in this country. So we need to be overly alert as to what we're doing because we need to channelize this energy into something more fruitful. Our issues in Pakistan would be child health to start with. Nearly half of Pakistan's children are deficient in critical vitamins and minerals. More than 1/3 of households are food insecure, and with 18.3% of households are affected by severe food insecurity. One of the 8 adolescent girls and 1 in 5 adolescent boys is underweight. 56.6% of adolescent girls in Pakistan are anemic. So this is worrying. This is worrying. We don't see this, but when we read about this, this is certainly very disturbing. The second big area is the child education itself. An estimated of 36% or 25.3 million of these children are out of school. I mean, this is a big responsibility. How could this be possible? I mean, any adult sitting in this room, 25.3 million children in this country are out of school. We need to be doing something about it. And I don't want to quote other figures, I just move on. Children with special needs, that doesn't even show. Nobody even looks at that. According to the survey of Pakistan Bureau of Statistics taken by NADRA, there are 0.4 million, that's 0.4 million is about 371,000 people, children, with special needs in Pakistan across such areas such as visually impaired, hearing and speech impairment and others. In Pakistan, children with special needs are not integrated into the society and encounter multiple challenges, such as a lack of access to health facilities, funds, and qualified educational staff to study their needs. Children, special children in Pakistan, you take them to regular school doesn't know what to do with them. You go out to England, they're mainstream children. They say, you're welcome, please, the child should sit here. Our teachers don't understand this, our schools don't understand. Where do we take them? So please, we need to understand special children need to be cared and looked after. Pakistan doesn't have any such facility. I mean, it does, but it doesn't have the way it should be. Child marriage is another issue. According to UNICEF, approximately 21% of the girls in Pakistan are married before the age of 18. The Pakistan Demographic and Health Survey, PDHS, 2017-2018 reports that 18% of women aged 20 and 24 were married before the age of 18. And the figure goes on, it's very depressing. I just want to flag the area. And then we still have the customs of Wani and Sawara going on. I mean, we at the Supreme Court, I remember as a public interest litigator took the matter of Sawara to the Supreme Court long years ago. It's still continuing. Sawara and Waniya, where young girls, often minors, are given in marriage to an aggrieved family as compensation to end disputes, and they're still prevalent. So shame on us, actually. Child labor, another big area. According to the Labor Force Survey, 2017 and 18, around 12.5 million children between the age of 5 and 14 are engaged in child labor. Then we have child trafficking going on. According to the Trafficking in Person Report 2024 by the US Department of State, the government of Pakistan reported identifying 30,000 trafficking victims. These included 20,000 sex trafficking victims, and then it goes on and on and on, other figures. I'm cutting short. Forced conversions, from other religions to other religions. The population of Pakistan is 96.3% Muslim, but there are other populations, there are forced conversions being made. Then we have corporal punishment, which are really, really disturbing. And corporal punishment is the punishment given in schools by teachers to students. In a study carried out in 40 schools across Hyderabad by the National Institute of Health, it was reported that out of 1,752 sixth grade students, 91% of boys and 60% of girls reported corporal punishment at the school. This is not on. Corporal punishment really is illegal. The law prohibits it, but goes on. We need to address that. Juvenile offenders. The total number of convicted under trial juvenile imprisoned in various hostels, institutes and jails, Punjab was 645, and the figure goes on, but we need to look at that. We need to get them out of prisons, put them into some other modes of restoration, that is diversion and other plans that are provided in the new 2018 Act, to which I'll come. Child abuse is another big problem our society is facing. Sahil, a local NGO, released its annual reports called The Cruel Numbers for 2023 on 29th February 24, reporting incidents of child abuse, which included cases of child abuse, sexual abuse, abductions, missing children, child online abuse, and child marriages in all 4 provinces, as well as Islamabad. So this is also going on. With the increase in internet penetration in Pakistan, well, the internet is pretty slow these days, but otherwise, and an increase of 22 million internet users recently, issues such as child pornography, cyberbullying, sexting, live streaming of child sexual abuse and their exploitation have intensified. So the term sexting is another term that I just discovered, but not very happily. But these are the things that are going on. So, well, in this case, I'm kind of glad that the internet is slow. So climate change. According to UNICEF's 2021 Landmarks Children's Climate Risk Index report, 1 billion children are at extreme high risk of the impacts of climate change and climate crisis. So that's another intersection that is worrying. So how do we go about it, you see? What should be as judges, what should be our approach? These are the crises going on, and we'll end up getting all these.
One thing you forget, suicide, majority of children is using suicide.
So you're adding to my depression. There is suicide also, which I missed out happily, but I just want to add that. Suicide, thank you for that input. Child suicide is also, I don't have the figures, but as pointed out by my brother. 300 and some.
170 are women.
So that again is so what is the approach and what does UNCRC tells us and what does the global literature tell us? So the judges need to be looking at the following, and I think this is something I'll write down as a judge. This is my key way of doing things. So number one is the best interest of the child. Now, we don't have this literature. We just talk about welfare of child when we talk about guardianship and welfare of the child, and that's the term that might have come through earlier jurisprudence to us. But the world is talking about best interest of the child. In serving the best interest of children, we serve the best interest of the humanity, is something that somebody said. In all actions where children are directly or indirectly involved or affected by the justice system, the best interest of the child should be the primary consideration. So that's the first principle. Therefore, in every action, thought must be given, thought must be given to how the action will impact on a child or groups of children to ensure their best interests are met. That's one. Number two, guaranteeing fair and equal treatment of every child free from all kinds of discrimination. We have to ensure that the child is not being discriminated. That's the second principle which comes out very strong. More importantly, advancing the right of the child to express his or her views freely and to be heard. As I said earlier, we need to listen and engage and make the child participate in the judicial proceedings to understand what he wants to say. Children have a particular right to be heard in any administrative or judicial proceedings, either directly or through a representative or an appropriate body in a manner consistent with the procedural rules of national law, which doesn't happen. Next principle, protecting every child from abuse, exploitation, and violence. This is also the responsibility of the court to create that, cover that protection around a child, which is important. We need to move on. Treating every child with dignity and compassion. Now, this is what a judge must have. He must have compassion, or she must have compassion. A judge can't be a judge if he or she does not have compassion. So every child has to be treated as a unique and valuable human being, and as such, his or her individual dignity, as also pointed out by my friend Abdullah, dignity is at the heart of it. Special needs, interests, privacy should be respected and protected. So we must protect the child. I personally, I must admit that if a child comes to my court, we're not really talking about protecting the child immediately. We're just trying to decide a case. I think we need to get more sensitive about it. We have a child coming to a court. Think about the child. Are we protecting him? Are we giving him the security? Is his privacy protected? Is he being heard? I think that's the kind of focus we need to have in the court. So respecting legal guarantees and safeguards in all due processes, we need to do that. Preventing conflict with the law as a crucial element of any juvenile justice policy. These are all principles that continue coming. I'll just move on. So mainstreaming children's issues in all rule of law efforts are important. Our legal framework, we have, and I urge every judge to go through the UNCRC. It talks about some wonderful principles and it's legally binding because Pakistan is a signatory to this document. And a number of its articles are very illuminating. I don't want to go through them. Article 3, Article 37. You can also look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I'm telling this to the judges when they're writing their judgments. These are the documents you should refer to. There's a lot of literature out there for you that helps you reach out to the children. One is the convention itself, then the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I don't want to get into them. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR talks about it. ICESCR, that's International Covenant on Social, Economic and Cultural Rights, talks about it. And I don't want to refer to the articles. United Nations General Comment number 26 of 2023 also supports this. All these documents are relevant. You can write them in your judgment and, reach out and help the child. So I'll just, and then you have to also make sure that you have a look at the Beijing rules, which is the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for Administration of Juvenile Justice. I think every judge must read them. And I would urge the FGA to ensure that whatever comes out of this conference, if we can come up with all these documents as a bench book, and I will urge UNICEF also, this bench book needs to get to the judges actually. So what I'm saying here would just actually disappear once I leave. So in order to sort of solidify what's happening, I think a bench book with the help of UNICEF would be wonderful, and we can immediately start working, and Valerie Khan is here. If we can at least send the judges these documents, that will be extremely helpful. Moving on to, and then of course we have the national framework, and I would urge judges to look at your own constitution, which is very strong and robust in this regard. First of all, Article 11.3 of the Constitution provides that no child below the age of 14 years shall be engaged in any factory or any other hazardous employment. And hazardous employment is open to interpretation. And we can do that, we don't do any limit for that matter. To my mind, even a household could become hazardous depending on the circumstances. So I think 11.3 needs a reinterpretation. Once again, I can't do it. My friend who's from the constitutional bench I urge him to do it because मैं तो कर नहीं सकता तो आप कर I'm sorry I keep coming up with this remark at times, but मैं अब क्या करूँ मैं interpretation of course. But I'm so glad that Jamal Saab is here, so he could do this. और एक और है जी 25.3 of the Constitution provides that state can make any special provisions for the protection of women and children. Women का तो आज तक हम करते रहे हैं. Children का हमने ये पार्ट पढ़ा ही नहीं लगता है 25.3. You can go ahead and make special provision for children. So special provision में आप उसको आगे बढ़ के help कर सकते हैं जितना आप करना चाहें. I think this gives you a lot of bandwidth कि इसको आप आगे ले जाएं. तो 25.3 बहुत ही important होगा. And then there 25A, 35, 37 वगैरह वगैरह. और जो एक्ट है Juvenile Justice System Act 2018 JJSA talks about a number of interesting things. The 2018 law, which one thing that I want to mention is that diversion का जो part है वो unattended है. So we don't have to send the child to prison. I mean, there are a number of other avenues available for us कि उनको community service मुख्तलिफ कामों पे आप लगा सकते हैं. इस चीज़ को देखें. We want, and I hope that the FG is also, while training judges here, tell them that diversion is possible. And let's see that we start getting some orders from the district judiciary which is dealing with diversion rather than sort of sending them behind prison. I think this also then, once again, I want to reiterate that Rabia and others could bring these petitions to the court to highlight that this can happen. And I think they should. We have laws like Sindh Child Marriage Restraint Act, which could be looked at for child marriages. We have the Punjab Domestic Workers Act. Some of them are kind of untouched. Nobody's really talking about them. So this bench book could highlight and bring these to everybody. And, you know, sometimes you don't know that there's a law that exists. If that's there, it will be helpful for the judges to have this. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Child Protection Act is there, 2010. So we might be over-legislated, but I tell you, most of the judges don't know about this over-legislation. So maybe sometimes over-legislation could, we like to make the best of it by putting it to some use that we could. So then coming down to jurisprudence, we've had some recent good judgments. Even just as Jamal Khan was telling me that he had come up with a very exciting judgment in Balochistan, which I'm not really aware of here, but that too. But otherwise, we've come up with exciting jurisprudence recently talking about the best interests of the child from the Supreme Court. I don't want to talk about the judgments, but you will find out, and hopefully we put them into the bench book also for the judges to understand. I don't want to sort of labor through the recent judgments that we've come up in this regard. Then I want to sort of touch upon another area, which is that sometimes, you see, we come from, as Abdullah rightly pointed out, we come from the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So maybe there is, there's a lot of wisdom in our own system, in our own religion about this. And sometimes that touches the chord more than maybe just common law systems. So we have an Islamic jurisprudence on this also, and I just want to refer to that. Now, key principles of child justice in Islam. Sometimes these things touch us more being Muslims, and if nothing else works, this could work. And that says that compassion and mercy, which is Rahma, is the guidance. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized mercy towards children. And I quote, "He is not one of us who does not show mercy to our young." So this comes out of it, and the mandate is that judges must prioritize compassion in all decisions involving children, ensuring penalties or judgments focused on reform rather than punishment. Then the best interest of the child is also referred to as masalaha al-tifl, which is decisions must prioritize the child's welfare and future. Now this is all coming out of our religion, you see. Abhi hum UNCRC kar rahe the, but this is all there. So the mandate is the judges should adopt a welfare-based approach, considering the physical, emotional, and social needs of a child above all else. Then we have the accountability for guardians, wilaya, which says Islam holds parents and guardians accountable for the proper upbringing of the children. And once again, I quote the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said, each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for his flock. So judges should assess the role of the guardians in cases of neglect or delinquency and may intervene to protect the child's interests, says our religion. Age of responsibility, taklif, that's what it says. Children are not considered fully accountable for their actions until they reach the age of majority, that's when they become baligh. So Islamic law exempts children from harsh punishments and focuses on corrective measures and moral education for minors, once again coming out of our system. Restorative justice, sulah and islah, this is also part of Islam. And it says Islam encourages reconciliation and forgiveness over retribution, especially in cases involving minors, and judges should promote restorative justice mechanisms such as mediation between families or community-driven solutions. And this we can do sitting in court. It's not about just quickly punishing them and sending them to prison. Let's be innovative, let's be slightly more creative, let's get the community involved, let's think of all the other avenues that the child could resolve that dispute through. We do that now, ADR being a system that we're bringing in generally. Protection from harm. The principle of la darar wa la darar, no harm or reciprocating harm, mandates safeguarding children from any form of abuse or exploitation. Once again, comes into our system. Then education and rehabilitation, again, Islam talks about it, places immense importance on education and moral upbringing. Then I quote one of the hadiths, no father gives his child anything better than good manners, leading to, giving them good education. Equality and justice, adl and qist, also preventive measures, Islam talks about it. Dignity of the child, this is karama. The Quran highlights the inherent dignity of every human. We have honored the children of Adam, says the Quran. Judges must ensure that judicial process respect the dignity of the child, avoiding practices that stigmatize or traumatize them. So judicial practices which are important, which are mandated by Islam, we must follow as judges, as justice system, would be a child-friendly courtroom, for example. We need to start thinking of that. We need to, and Jamal Khan Sahib is here, we need to, and Justice Kiani is also here, we need to think of setting up child courts in the country. It's important. We can't just go on. So whenever a child is in conflict or in contact with our justice system, we must have a special provision for it. It can't be, right now we're not thinking about the child. बच्चे का कोई ख्याल नहीं है. वो इस तरह ये सारा कि कोई adult हमारे system में आ रहा है. जैसी child हमारे system में आता है, हमारा एक और mechanism on हो जाना चाहिए जो उसको protective तरीके से देखे और उसको जल्दी उसके मामलात को हल करे. That is what the religion is also mandating. That's what the global literature is telling us. So child-friendly courtrooms, avoidance of harsh punishments. ये बात सबने कही है. It's been echoed earlier. ये punishments का system नहीं है बच्चों के मामले में. We need to be creative on this. और holistic assessment सारी करें, counseling करें, mediation की तरफ जाएं. This is what we have to look at. So basically, the philosophy that the judges will have to follow or judiciary have to follow is the restorative justice focus. We have to restore things. We don't have to have a retributive approach towards, but restorative approach towards. We need to think of diversion programs. For example, steering children away from formal judicial system to community support and alternative solutions. Counseling, skill building programs, mentorship. Please think of these things. We don't have a single order from the Supreme Court down to the civil court where we say diversion of mentorship is possible. Maybe there is, but I don't know. I don't know of such an order which I can show case right now to the children sitting in front of me that we could send you for mentorship, we can send you to community work. No, we just send you to prison for tota also. So that's what we do right now, but we'll change. I assure you we'll change. Then we have child-centric judicial procedures. We need to ensure that judicial processes are sensitive to the needs of the children. Children courtrooms and arrangements, and I think there were some photographs, I don't know if they were being shown. So there's something, there are courtrooms. We set that up in Lahore. If you see, I mean, it's not a photo, but I'm just saying that you see, this is the courtrooms that we've tried to develop, where children sit in the courtrooms on the side, and they could be taken into the hearing later on. ये हमने कोर्ट बनाए हैं पंजाब में, और जगह भी बने हुए हैं, केपी में भी बनाए हैं. And ये child court देखें आप लिखा हुआ है. ये माहौल create करना पड़ेगा if you want to protect your children. They can't be rushed through the rigors of the justice system just like that. और ये कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. ये एक कोर्ट को इस तरह बनाना है और उसमें साइकाइट्रिस्ट या साइकोलॉजिस्ट कोई भी साथ रख के वो भी साथ उसकी सपोर्ट भी होती है. So basically, I think I'm just going on and on. I should stop. I'll just, in the end, want to say that judiciary has, the way forward for us would be that we establish, and these are recommendations for the Honorable Chief Justice, who is not here today, but we will communicate this to him. We'll communicate your suggestions and inputs, but some of the way forward checklist to me is, which I am actually going to take to the Chief Justice, is to establish juvenile justice committees in all tiers of the governance in order to increase access to justice. Number 2, establish juvenile rehabilitation centers in each district. 3, introduction of child courts across Pakistan with the child sensitivity as its a guiding principle. Number 4, new rules of business for carrying out the provisions of JJSA for Punjab, Balochistan and other provinces. Establish independent investigative mechanism empowered to initiate investigations into police misconduct based on complaints or other available information. These bodies should have unrestricted access to police stations and all detention facilities, including unofficial ones, and be readily accessible to children and their families. Next one, establish and implement an effective age determination mechanism providing for a multidisciplinary and holistic age assessment procedures in cases where no documentary proof exists. Review and revise the Pakistan prison rules, which was discussed, and I think the initiative has been already taken by the Honorable Chief Justice regarding prisons. So they have to look at it in the light of the JJSA 2018, and I'm sure that will happen. Train and sensitize juvenile courts, police, probation, prosecution, investigation, detention, prison staff, as well as the MLOs, the medical legal officers, psychologists, and social workers on the provisions of JJSA and the child justice. That needs to happen. The training has started at the academy, and I'm sure this relationship with UNICEF, which extends over a period of time, will lead to huge benefits in this regard. Ensure that the provisions of qualified and independent pro bono legal representation to children in conflict with the law. The provincial governments need to allocate adequate funds for legal assistance and defense lawyers for juvenile offenders by maintaining a roster panel of committed and dedicated lawyers both at the provincial and district level. And here I would say that organizations like NCHR or the NCRC could come forward to the courts bringing these very vital cutting edge issues. That also helps us be in touch with what's happening, and also some very productive orders could be passed in that direction. Issue judicial guidelines providing for the grant of bail without sureties for juvenile offenders based on their socio-economic circumstances. Capacity building of judges, which we're doing, and prosecutors and court staff. So in the end, a quote that was partly said by somebody and I sort of kind of changed it and played with it. So the quote is now as follows. Every generation, it touches my heart actually, every generation of children offers mankind the possibility of rebuilding a better world. Thank you very much.